Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as I, as a zombie, try to get through today's show because I was up till 4:30 in the morning doing yesterday's companion video, but we'll talk more about that in just a second. Not joining us today is Erin Cummings, who's normally here on Thursdays. I literally just got a text message from her about half hour ago. She's a little bit under the weather, so she's not able to be here today. She sends along her regrets to you guys. She loves being here on Thursdays, so we will see her again on Tuesday. Don't worry. But to make everything better, ladies and gentlemen, as she always does, Chris Carr is here. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I had so much fun last night doing the Star Wars game.
Oh, yeah. Last night we had our first session of our Star Wars role-playing game. Remind me again. Jackson
Trico.
Jackson was
I'm a curmudgeon-y scout.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you played very well.
Thank you.
You
I
actually-
murdered so many people.
You murdered. There was a lot of murder last night.
I straight up murdered folks.
So much murder. And I am going to be putting up, by the way, guys, a little highlight clip of our game, and then I'll put up much fuller sessions. I'm not going to put up the whole thing of our game yesterday because a lot of people, it was their first time playing, but I'll put up more of it next week when we play next week. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Hey, let me address something here really quick. I mentioned it off the top here. We have a little bit of an issue in the sense that I have not put up the what am I mentioning? I have not put up the companion video for yesterday's show. I haven't put up the companion video. I apologize for that. I did record yesterday's companion video. As a matter of fact, here it is right here, sitting on my YouTube channel, How Disney Ruined the Spider-Man Situation with Sony. That's the John Campea Show companion video. That's the companion video. Here's the thing. I had to do it last night after our game was done. Took me a while to get it ready. Took me almost 3 hours to record. Then I had to do a little bit of editing on it to get it uploaded. And I set it to go live at 4:45 in the morning. So I went to bed about 4:30, and I set it to go live at 4:45 in the morning, but I accidentally set it to go live tomorrow morning at 4:45, and I just realized that this morning. So once we're done the John Campea Show here today, I will publish and set yesterday's companion video live. My apologies for those of you who are waiting for it, but it will get up a little bit later. Okay, listen, guys. Few things that would be great for you to do before we get into all things here in the show. Number one, go on over and click the subscribe button. Become a subscriber to the John Campea YouTube channel here. If you like these types of videos, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Just go over there and give that thing a click. And also make sure you have your voice heard as well. Jump down into the comments section and leave your thoughts and opinions and things like that. And if you want your question or thought or opinion actually addressed in a video here today, just go on ahead and use the super chat feature. It's a great way to get your question or comment on the show, but also it's a good way to support the channel as well. So with that down, let's talk about this one thing off the top before we get into our main topic, shall we? And that is this. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, obviously, with Stan Lee's passing and all that kind of stuff. And now we've got the Spider-Man and Sony situation going on. Now, we're going to address that specific situation a little bit more here in just a bit. But there's a lot of opinions being given. I have my opinions. You have your opinions and stuff like that. Well, one of the people who have weighed in with their opinions on this is Stan Lee's daughter. And Stan Lee's daughter is actually saying right now that Stan Lee would have sided with Sony in all this. She's actually come out and said that she sides with Sony and that she believes that her father would have sided with Sony in all this as well. Actually, she sounds pretty convinced that her dad would have sided with Sony as well in all this. Here's one of the comments they say. It says, the late Stan Lee, who created Spider-Man, would have been happy over the news that Sony pumped the brakes on giving Disney control over his character. So says his daughter. It goes on to say, as for how the Lees feel about it, J.C. Lee says, Marvel and Disney seeking total control of my father's creations must be checked and balanced by others who, while still seeking profit, have genuine respect for Stan Lee and his legacy, aka cameos don't count. Now, she goes beyond just that to actually harshly criticize Disney, saying that she believes Disney did not respect her father, that they actually, while they give him little like token cameos, they never actually respect him. Now, that seems to me to point to some bigger drama that went on behind the scenes that we're probably not privy to. And at this point, Stan Lee's daughter herself is not saying what that information may be at this time. So in the midst, I just thought it was an interesting thing. Now, does the fact that Stan Lee's daughter is saying that she sides with Sony, does that end this debate? No. Does his daughter saying that Stan Lee himself would have sided with Sony in this, does that end the debate? No, actually it doesn't. Some people might think, well, if Stan Lee and his family think it's Sony, then Sony's... No. I do think Sony's right, but just because his daughter says that, and just because his family is saying Stan would have thought that, that doesn't end the debate. I mean, everybody still has rights. Everybody's trying to run their business. Everybody's trying to do what they're trying to do. But I did find it very interesting. Chris, you hear about this little thing. I was actually surprised to hear Stan Lee's family actually weighed into this discussion at this point. Mm-hmm. What do you think about what she's saying?
I mean, it's pretty easy to do a coulda, woulda, shoulda when somebody's not around.
Yeah.
And if you all recall, at least as far back as June, she was talking to Page Six about allegations against people abusing her father, his former business manager stealing money from them. There was also a lot of back and forth on her involvement in possibly, allegedly, not having a great relationship with him, or maybe taking advantage of some situations as well. So it's really hard to say how altruistic all of these things are. Stan's not here to defend himself. So I do think that as far as Stan's character, Peter Parker, goes, I think, he's the little guy and he fights for the little guy. He would be on the side of Sony as well.
And again, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination this should settle the debate for anybody, nor should it change the mind of anybody who's doing that. I just thought it was interesting. I will say this, though. I think Stan Lee's daughter and family have more of a place to weigh in on this than, say, why am I freezing the name on the name of the guy who plays Hawkeye?
Jeremy Renner.
I think, she as Stan Lee's family actually has more of a place to weigh in on this than Jeremy Renner does. Because, Jeremy Renner put out that tweet the other day, and I love Jeremy Renner. But he should keep his place in this and not weigh in on this. He clearly has a heavy bias in this, and he probably shouldn't be involved. But anyway, that's just my thought. Guys, what do you think about this whole stuff about Stan Lee and his family, saying that they would side with Sony and all this? Does it mean a lot? Does it mean a little? Does it mean nothing at all? Personally, I'm in the middle. I think it means a little, but it doesn't mean a lot. It doesn't mean nothing. What do you guys think? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our main topics today. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. See, you guys come up with them by simply going over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, fill out the form. And when you fill out the form with your topic or question, go ahead and hit submit. Then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here on the John Campea Show. With that down, Chris, what is our first main topic today?
So first we're hearing from Kevin W. Crutchfield. According to THR, Sony doesn't believe that it needs Marvel anymore. A Sony source told THR that, quote, Tom Rothman is thinking, okay, we've learned everything we need to from Kevin's playbook. We did Venom on our own, and we did Spider-Verse. If Venom hadn't proved to be so successful at the box office, Sony probably wouldn't have felt so emboldened. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse also went a long ways towards Sony's rehabilitation of its image. What? They cannot be serious. So what do you think about that?
Obviously, there's a lot of different points of view on the whole Sony Disney thing. I am well established in this. I am a huge Disney fan. I love a lot of the stuff that Disney does, but that doesn't mean I don't smell shit when shit's been taken. And this is, to me, this is unquestionably 1,000% Disney's fault. Everything about this situation, and I love Disney. They do a ton of things right. But this is 1,000% their fault. That is my particular opinion on this. But moving beyond that, Kevin raises an interesting question. Is Sony justified in thinking, if this is indeed what they think, that they don't, quote unquote, need Marvel? The simple, obvious answer to that is, yeah, they would be justified in that. The bottom line is Sony does not need Marvel with their Spider-Man character. They just don't. All evidence points to the fact that they don't. But I'll go one step further than that. I don't believe Marvel needs Spider-Man. Marvel is now, yes, Sony benefited greatly from getting, their partnership with the MCU. And the MCU benefited greatly, as the Hollywood Reporter and Variety have both pointed out. The MCU benefited greatly. Having Spider-Man come and show up in Civil War infused a new injection of life into the franchise that took them to another level. Sony benefited greatly. Marvel benefited greatly. But are we at a point that we say that Marvel needs Sony and their Spider-Man there, or that Sony needs the MCU? And unless you're going to cover your eyes with pure fanboyism, the answer to that question is no. They honestly don't need each other. Now, let me be very clear here. There's a distinction to be made between would it be beneficial for them to work together and do they need each other to work? Well, let's start with the question of, does Marvel need Sony and need Spider-Man? All you have to do is look at the box office and look at, the popularity of this franchise and all that kind of stuff. On top of the 5,000 characters they already have, Disney is also about to get the entire influx of the X-Men catalog, which is another 5,000 characters all coming in. They have 10 projects coming up in the next 2 years in theaters and on Disney+. None of them involving Spider-Man. So to suggest that Marvel needs Spider-Man would suggest that all these next projects are doomed to fail if he's not there. Marvel does not need to have Spider-Man, but it would be beneficial and in their best interest to have him. On the Sony end of things, Sony has made multiple Spider-Man films without Marvel before their deal ever came about. Not a single one. Like, I know I repeat this a lot, but it's so relevant, you gotta drill this in. Not a single Spider-Man live action film that Sony ever made without Marvel ever made less than $700 million. Think about that. There's a number of MCU movies that have made less than $700 million, but no Sony made Spider-Man films without Marvel ever made less than $700 million. Now, I personally contend that I believe that the best Spider-Man movies have been Sony made. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie, period, end of sentence. That's open to subjective opinion, of course, but from my eyes, Marvel never made a better one, and Sony themselves never made a better one. Sony's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. And I think the second best Spider-Man movie ever made is Spider-Man 2, which I still think is a top 10 comic book movie of all time. Now, Homecoming and Far From Home are better than a number of other of the Sony Spider-Man movies, for sure, absolutely. But they have made fantastic Spider-Man movies without Marvel. They also made a couple of bad ones, but they made a number of fantastic Spider-Man movies without Marvel. They've all been financially successful. Again, the lowest box office one in their roster made over $700 million. They just won an Academy Award for one of their Spider-Man films without Marvel. So I'm sorry. Every bit of tangible context that we have all points to the fact that Sony doesn't need Marvel. But would it be beneficial to Sony to have their partnership with Marvel? Yes. Of course it would be beneficial. Like, we have been living in an era here, Chris, for the last number of years where Sony, Marvel, and all of us as fans have been enjoying the juicy fruits of the partnership between Sony and Marvel, having these Spider-Man movies made that have all been high quality, and having Spider in the MCU, which is added to the MCU. Everybody's made money. Fans have been happy. Mm-hmm. It is the better outcome. But I think if we're going to be objective and look at all the factual context that we have in front of us, you can't make the argument, I don't believe, that either Marvel needs to have Sony and Spider-Man, nor that Sony needs to have Marvel. You know, Sony is Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 1, which some people try to say is one of the bad ones. I don't get that. I think The Amazing Spider-Man 1 was actually quite good. I don't think it's the best Spider-Man movie, but I think it's solid. It's got like over 75% critic rating. It's got over 75% audience rating. It made them over $700 million. It made them like well over $700 million. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, okay, yeah, there's that. But even that made over $700 million. You can't make a rational argument that Sony needs Marvel, nor that Marvel needs Spider-Man. But I also think you'd have to have your head buried into the sand not to recognize that there are big benefits for everybody to have them. So I'm going to say I disagree with Kevin, because he seems to think Sony's crazy for thinking that they don't need Marvel. But they're absolutely right. They don't need Marvel. But they sure could use them.
Yeah.
And it sure is beneficial. Anyway, you're hearing about all this. What's your take on it, Chris?
I mean, you're coming in here with your facts and your figures. And dang it, I just want them to get along and do more movies.
Yeah.
I want them to have a symbiotic relationship.
Well done. Well said.
That's all I want. And, you know, that initial financial pitch, that agreement, is incredibly parasitic. That's not fun. That doesn't really help Sony out in the end if Disney's taking all this money, despite any funding they're giving, because that is a huge ask. That 50% ask was insane. And like you and Rob have been arguing about for the past week, is that, you know, Sony does have the prestige. Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse did incredibly well. And it showed that you can do a Spider-Man movie without the Spider-Man that most mainstream audiences know. So they can do stuff with their own IP stuff. The issue right now, too, though, is now that they're going to lose some of the juicy bits that Marvel and Disney has.
Yeah.
What kind of movies are we going to get now? What are they going to be allowed to do? And same thing, honestly, for Marvel. You know, what are they going to do now after that cliffhanger, after that next phase of what's supposed to be happening with the MCU? So that's really what I'm more focused on. I don't think we live in a world where we're not getting another Spider-Man movie and we're not going to have Tom Holland in another film. I definitely think that we're going to have stuff and everyone should just kind of take a breath and just whoosah, because Tom Holland's here to stay. He's going to make more movies. Don't you worry. Right now, it's just a bunch of financials that we accidentally, I feel, got let in on. I don't think any of us were supposed to know about any of this stuff. And I'm still hoping that they do that big crotch yell thing you were talking about yesterday.
The DX crotch chop. Yep.
And they all just, you know, come together and kumbaya and let us know that the Peter Parker we know and love is still here to stay.
Yeah, and look, I go ad nauseum into this in the companion video that I failed to post last night, but it'll be posted shortly after the show's done here. But, you know, a lot of people, they still don't get this thing. It's like, 50% isn't unreasonable. It's absolutely, if you're the owner of the IP, that's insane. But it goes beyond that. It's not just 50% of the box office in the Spider-Man movies. Because on top of all that, Disney wants a co-financing agreement, which guess what? That gives away some of Sony's ownership rights if they do that. If they let Disney pay for some of the movies, that gives Disney some controlling interest in the movies, and that is something Sony cannot allow to happen. But the other thing everybody conveniently forgets about is not only is Disney asking for 50%, they're also asking to maintain their 100% merchandising rights, which, by the way, is worth an ass load of a fortune. A huge amount of money. So Disney wants 50% of the Spider-Man movies. They want to keep 100% of the merchandising, and they want to keep 100% of all the box office money that all the other movies they put Spider-Man in, Sony doesn't get $1 of that. F you. That's completely extortion. That is completely unreasonable. Oh yeah, we want to get some of the ownership rights back by being a co-financer and acquiring some of Sony's rights. We want 50% of the money, and we want 100% of the merchandising. What? And we don't want to give Sony a single dollar of the movies we put their Spider-Man character in. That sounds fair. No, it doesn't. It's so ridiculous. But anyway, I go more into that into the companion video. Keep your eyes open for that. Anyway, guys, getting back to the core question, though, of does Marvel needs Spider-Man? Does Sony need Marvel? I suggest while it would be incredibly beneficial for both, neither of them actually need each other per se. How do you see it? Change my mind. Jump into the comment section below and give me your point of view and perspective on that. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our second main topic today. Chris, what is our second main topic today?
This is from Sean Jordan. The first trailer for Bombshell was released and Charlize Theron is unrecognizable in it.
Yeah.
Although it was a short teaser, I would love to hear your thoughts as this seems to be an awards contender. Thanks and keep up the good work. This trailer, oh my gosh, I couldn't recognize Charlize or Nicole Kidman in this. This is crazy. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, the hair was a little different. No, I kept on looking at Charlize Theron in this trailer. I'm going, Did they get the name right? Are they sure that is Charlize Theron? As you can see her there, because that looks nothing like her. And then I read later, okay, it's not just they did prosthetic work on her to make her look more like Megyn Kelly.
Okay.
And oh my God, they did such a great job.
Including that, let me see your manager haircut.
Yes. So
great.
I started to think for a second, did they actually put Megyn Kelly in this elevator to be a part of this movie? Because no matter what angle, sometimes you see an actor and it's like, that doesn't look like them. And they show it from a different angle. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah. This, every angle, close up, far away shot, I just became more and more convinced this was not her.
Oh, yeah.
Just 100% sure this wasn't her. Listen, it is a short teaser, but oh my God, the tension in this trailer. Now, of course, this is all about the sexual abuse and sexual harassment and all the stuff that went on with Roger Ailes. I always mispronounce it, Ailes or something like that. And how they brought down the guy who created Fox News. And it's about these various ones. Margot Robbie actually plays a fictitious character. Yes. They put her in there so they can have sort of an anchor point to tell the story. But I'll tell you what, there wasn't much going on in the trailer. But again, oh my God, it is filled with tension.
It is
and
intense.
This awkwardness.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God. And the trailer just dropped out of nowhere. I'll tell you what, I really liked the trailer. What did you think about it?
I thought it was incredible. I was so drawn in. I've never cared about people not talking in an elevator more in my life. Oh my gosh. And just Margot Robbie's face, if you just watch her in the scene too, just how uncomfortable she gets and how she's fighting back tears. And Nicole Kidman just coming in and being like, it's a little toasty in here. I can't wait to see this film. I'm really, really interested in it. I really want to see what the people involved have to say about it once the film's released too, because I mean, Gretchen Carlson, who Nicole Kidman plays, has obviously been very outspoken about what to do if you're sexually harassed, if you're the victim of any kind of sexual assault or anything like that. Megyn Kelly kind of went back and forth on a lot of things for a while, but I'm really, really intrigued to see what everyone else who's involved thinks about how the film is interpretive of their situation. I'm not guessing Fox is going to give a lot of coverage. Probably not.
Question here is, guys, what did you think about this trailer for Bombshell? Did you recognize Charlize? Because I certainly did not. Anyway, jump down the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. Chris, what is our third main topic today?
The third topic's from Mitch Caulfield. Hey, John and crew, love the show. I recently saw that Ezra Miller, who has played the DC character The Flash, has confirmed he is still playing the Flash for the solo movie in the DCEU from the heroic Hollywood. I liked his portrayal as the Flash and loved the character itself from the CW show. But when are we getting this? I know problems with the script and with keeping directors is a big problem. Keep hoping, like some people, I'm sure we will get a movie soon. What are your thoughts? Do you think the Flash film exists?
Well, it doesn't exist right now. Look, there's a couple things to keep in mind here. There was stories going back a little while ago about Ezra Miller and, that DC and Warner Brothers has to get moving on a Flash movie by a certain time or else Ezra's contract lapses and he can move on. Then there was this whole song and dance and pony show and ridiculousness about, well, Ezra's not happy with the script. We'll let him write his own version of the script. And they totally threw their directors under the bus. And the directors have since gone, screw you. And they've walked off again, this is like the third or fourth set of directors and writers and everything that have walked off the thing because they completely disrespected the directors with Warner Brothers agreeing to bend over and let Ezra Miller come in and write his own version of the script, to which Warner Brothers didn't even like. No. And they didn't take it. Anyway, so a lot of the word that's been going around, and listen, by the way, too, and I'm not running this as a story because I'm not 100% sure about this myself. I've been told a couple of times that Ezra's done. Ezra's not on this anymore. Now, again, I can't confirm that, but I'm not the only person who's heard that. A lot of the other people in these circles have heard this as well, and you guys have probably heard other people mention that they've heard this as well, that he's gone. So what is this about him still being on? Well, here's the quote. Ezra was being interviewed. And by the way, just to be clear, I like Ezra Miller and I like him as the Flash. I know a lot of people had problems with his Flash in Justice League. I personally was quite entertained by Ezra Miller's incarnation of the Flash in that movie, and I've been looking forward to seeing him as the Flash again. But anyway, this is what he said. When asked about what he's got upcoming, Ezra Miller said the following. Well, I'll tell you the ones that I can tell you about because they're absolutely confirmed are Fantastic Beasts 3, The Flash movie. I'm making more music with Sons of an Illusion Father, the band I'm in, and I'm also making some music on my own, which will be sort of a new project, a solo project. So in this one quick little line, Ezra Miller seems to confirm that he is still doing a Flash movie. Okay. There's a couple of ways of looking at this. On the one hand, hey, Ezra Miller's just confirmed that he's still going to be the Flash, despite all the drama that went on, despite all the reports, despite everything we're hearing. Ezra Miller's saying, and look, this is coming right from the horse's mouth. Ezra Miller is saying he is still attached to the Flash movie. So there you go. It's a done deal, right? Well, this is Warner Brothers. And let me remind you of not so long ago at a little event called Comic-Con, after a bunch of people, starting with me, and then the Hollywood Reporter and others said, hey guys, Ben Affleck is done as Batman. Then Comic-Con happened, and Ben Affleck jumped on stage and said, I'm still Batman. I love being Batman. I'll walk on all fours like an ape for Matt Reeves to be in his Batman movie. Woo! I get to be Batman, everybody. Don't listen to all these things saying I'm not Batman anymore. Of course I'm Batman. I love being Batman. And of course it was all a lie. Mm-hmm. It was all a lie. It's pretty much assumed at this point Henry Cavill is done as Superman. But are they giving any of it? This is standard Warner Brothers playbook stuff. Right? They have yet to come out or let Henry confirm that he's no longer Superman. Although, hey, look, maybe they will have him back as Superman, but everything we're hearing is that he's done. But still, maybe it's a chance. It's a possibility. But the Ben Affleck thing as well, he was done for 2 years before they finally acknowledged what was going on. 2 years. So you'll have to forgive me if Ezra Miller coming out and saying, yeah, I'm still Flash. You'll have to forgive me if I don't take that at face value. You'll have to forgive me. Is it possible he's still Flash? Absolutely. Still possible. And I'll tell you what, while I do not like the way he has conducted himself, I'm still a big fan of his as the Flash. And I, for one, would like to see him as the Flash, to be honest with you. But I don't believe he's going to be Flash. It's possible there will be, but I just think with Warner Brothers' track record and stuff like this, and what we can tell is their playbook, I wouldn't take anything Ezra Miller says about him still being Flash at face value. I would take it with a grain of salt. Possibly true, but take it with a big grain of salt at this point. Anyway, what do you think, Chris? Am I being overly pessimistic about this? Am I just being jaded about this?
No, I think in my first week on this show, I called it the Don Quixote of the DCEU. I don't think this film is going to happen. I'd love it to. I really like Ezra Miller. I think he's a great performer. He's a really cool guy. I got to go to the premiere of Fantastic Beasts 2, and he was so nice to everyone and super, super cool. And I just don't think this is a thing. So for those of you out there, when you are a very, very low-level actor, such as myself, you do not say when you are in anything, because you are more than likely going to end up on the cutting room floor. It's just, and then you just feel like a douche, because you're like, oh yeah, maybe, watch out for me on The Flash this season, and then you're like, oh, they cut me. Oh, fun. So when you're a high-level actor, I feel like you have so many PR people telling you, hey, we got to keep up appearances. Hey, we got to keep making sure that you're this nicely packaged product. Because remember, actors are still products at the end of the day, guys. They still sell box office numbers. They still put butts in seats. You still have to appear like everything is super, super fine. I've used this phrase so much this week. Duck on the water. Going through, and your little legs underneath are just, no! I don't think he's going to be in this movie. He has so many other projects happening. He's in a whole bunch of makeup ads and stuff, too. He's gorgeous. He's fine. He's fine if he's not the Flash. I don't believe this movie's real.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think it's possible, but I just cannot take this at face value. Guys, what do you think about these comments from Ezra Miller? Do you buy them? You're thinking, look, he's got no reason not to be honest with us about this. I think it's perfectly reasonable to believe that he is going to be the Flash. Do you lean a little bit more my way, where I'm like, I don't take this at face value? How do you see it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 4. Chris, what is our 4th main topic today?
4th is from Samuel Pillay. So true film fans likely know that there are 3 big indie distributors not owned by major studios: A24, Annapurna, and Neon. I love most of the movies these guys choose to take risks on, which is why I'm really distressed by reports that Annapurna is on the verge of bankruptcy after a terrible financial 2019. With Disney putting the future of Fox Searchlight in question, these 3 indie distributors will become more important than ever, and I'd hate to see one of them disappear. Do you think this is big trouble for the indie scene?
Well, look, it's not just personally, I don't think this is just trouble for the indie scene. Mm-hmm. I think this sort of stuff is trouble for the movie industry as a whole. Look, we all love the big Marvel movies. I love the big DC movies. I love Star Wars. I love James Bond. I love the Mission Impossible franchise. I love my big Hollywood movies. I do. But the heart and soul of the movie industry are the deeper, profound, artistic films that give us as film fans a well-rounded movie experience. We get to see our Justice Leagues, and we get to see our more kind of heartfelt, dramatic, artistic films as well that round us out as film fans and give us a more full experience at the movies. It's great to have them all. Things like Annapurna represent not just, something along the lines of the indie film. I think we're limiting ourselves by just saying, what about the indie market? And by the way, Annapurna is much more prolific as a production company themselves than a distributor. So keep that in mind as well. It's not just the indie picture realm. This is the health of the movie industry, I believe, as a whole. When you have all these studios that they just listed, which I'm glad that they did, including in Annapurna, you're looking at a significant chunk, and I'll use the word again, a significant chunk of what I believe is the soul of the movie-going experience today. Just for an example, let's take a look at some of the films that Annapurna is either exclusively or partially responsible for over the last few years. Now, this is small text. You might have a hard time reading this on the screen, but movies like Lawless, The Master, Zero Dark 30, Spring Breakers, Her, which is so very good, American Hustle, Foxcatcher, Joy, Everybody Wants Some, the hilarious animated Sausage Party, Detroit, which is amazing, Phantom Thread. I mean, how many of these movies on this list were nominated for Best Picture? Seriously, including Phantom Thread, The Sisters Brothers, If Beale Street Could Talk, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Vice, Booksmart, which I still think is the best movie of the year. Where'd You Go, Bernadette, which is apparently great. I haven't seen it, and apparently nobody's seen it at this point. Nobody cares where Bernadette went, apparently. But the point is, look at the caliber of these movies. Look at the heart and soul and artistic merit. You are looking, it's almost like every other film on this list got serious Oscar buzz. And you look at stuff like another studio like A24. We rave and rave and rave about what A24 is doing. Rightfully so. It is so vitally important. Again, not just for the indie movement. This is so vitally important, I think, for the movie industry as a whole, because without films like these, without movies like these, without these movies that truly make us think and feel introspective and get really good, deep stories to go along with our big fun fare as well, it just becomes a much more shallow place to be as a film fan. And we need studios like this. We need distributors like this, because more and more, and I don't blame them, but more and more as studios like Warner Brothers and Disney and whatnot are looking for the big blockbuster films. They're looking for the big franchises. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Those are fun.
Nothing wrong with that at all. I love them. But while they're going that way, we've got to have these creators. We've got to have these organizations that are committed to giving us these other kinds of movies that are, well round out the movie-going experience. And I think if this goes south, I think it's a major blow to the film industry. I really, really do. Anyway, that's how I see it. Chris, you see this whole thing. What do you make out of it?
How am I somehow more cynical than you today? I had so much sleep. So I completely agree that these are very important films. You just look at that list, and like you were saying, those are all high caliber, incredible films. And maybe I'm saying this because I live in Los Angeles.
And then there's Sausage Party.
Sausage Party. Treat your animators better, guys. Come on. Don't be shitty to animators. And maybe this is because I live in LA and I see all the billboards constantly. But do we love our award season?
Oh,
do
yes.
we love the prestige of what I like to call Oscar season, a series of hard to watch. And because all of the movies you get when you get your screeners are just like, oh, this is going to be so depressing. Oh, it's going to be really, really good acting, but afterwards I'm going to have to eat a tub of ice cream. So I don't think these studios, or at least these films, will actually go anywhere. Because we've seen Disney start to try to kind of put their hand into the prestige things too, right? With like what we've talked about with Mulan, how that's going to be a more serious film. That's still a kind of mainstream, big budget blockbuster movie. But I think they're still going to make these smaller indie films with high caliber actors and try to really push the limits of storytelling and acting, because that's what all of Hollywood also likes to see. A lot of times award season is just this kind of self-masturbatory thing. And you know what? Hollywood really likes to get off. So I think these films and these studios are totally going to be okay.
I certainly hope so, because one like Annapurna filing for bankruptcy is not the greatest sign.
Well, someone can swoop in and look like a savior then.
I sure hope so. Question is, guys, what do you think about this? How do you feel about the current state of that, the importance of studios like these, or do you not see them as important at all? It all depends on your point of view. How do you see it? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. Chris, what is our fifth and final main topic today?
I love this username. It's from the Bionic Pickle. Hey, John. I've been seeing news about a lot of upcoming fantasy series that people are saying could be the next Game of Thrones. This includes Witcher, Lord of the Rings show, Wheel of Time, Watchmen, and some others. Of the 4 shows I just listed, which one do you think has a chance at being the next Game of Thrones?
Ooh, I mean, that has been an almost ad nauseum thing we've been hearing from the industry. Whenever anybody's talking about the new show, whatever the new show is they're hoping it'll be the next Game of Thrones. So-and-so is making a new series. They're hoping it'll be the next Game of Thrones. Disney or Disney Plus is creating a series. They're hoping it'll be the next Game of Thrones. HBO is making a new series. They're hoping it'll be the next Game of Thrones. Netflix is making a new series. They're hoping it'll be their Game of Thrones. You know, on and on and on. That's all. Now, you bring up a great list. You bring up an absolutely great list. And I think all of these shows show a lot of upside potential. I think they all show a lot of upside potential, very much. But I'm going to tell you which one I think has the best potential. It may fall on its face, just like all of them could. And they all have potential to be that next Game of Thrones. But I think the one that has the most potential, and I don't think it's going to surprise a lot of people, is going back to Middle-earth, my friends. And there's a couple of reasons for that. It's not just because, oh, John, you just love Lord of the Rings. No, I do. I do. Yes, I do. But it's more than that. When you really sit down and look at it, look at the legacy that the Lord of the Rings already has in the medium. People love Lord of the Rings. It already carries a huge, not only does it have one of the most faithful, loyal, and large book following in history, the movies become some of the most celebrated films in history. By the way, one of only 2 trilogies to be all 3 films in its series to be nominated for Best Picture. Little
Really?
bit. Yes, it is one of only 2 trilogies where all 3 films were nominated for Best Picture. One of them won. Of course, Lord of the Rings Return of the King won and won all the awards that year. Little trivia. Do you know what the other franchise in where every single film in it got nominated for Best Picture?
A trilogy? No.
Godfather.
Oh.
So that's some pretty good company to keep.
Yeah.
Godfather 1 and 2 were nominated and won Best Picture. Godfather 3 was nominated for Best Picture. Lord of the Rings, all 3 nominated for Best Picture. Third one won. Only 2 trilogies ever where all 3 were nominated for Best Picture. But it goes beyond that as well. Recently, Amazon put out this little behind the scenes. Here are the creators behind our upcoming Amazon series. And it was a who's who of talent from showrunners and writers and producers and designers. One of the original Lord of the Rings designers, they've gone on to be the concept designer for this as well. It was just mind-boggling good. On top of that, Amazon is going all in on this series. They are spending ridiculous amounts of money on this series. Now, money doesn't automatically equal quality, But when you hear the phrase, put your money where your mouth is, Amazon is putting their money where their mouth is. They're going all in on this show. They are sparing no expense. This is going to be the most expensive television series in history. It shows their commitment to it. They've got great, talented people behind the scenes. You've got a pre-existing fan base. You've got an incredible world of lore and mythology to draw from. There are a lot of upsides to a lot of these other shows as well. And maybe it'll be one of the other shows that becomes the next big pop cultural phenomenon, aka the next Game of Thrones. But right now, I'm seeing the most likely candidate being that Lord of the Rings show. Chris, when you look at that list, which ones stand out to you as maybe having the ones to have real potential be that next big the show?
I mean, because when we talk about what's the next Game of Thrones, it's what's going to be the water cooler show.
Yeah.
What is everyone going to be talking about? And while I think Lord of the Rings is much more accessible now because of the films, because of everyone seeing those, my dog is named Gimli, son of Gloin.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And I have so many people who say, oh, I've never seen that movie. And then my face just drops and I think, I don't want to be friends with you. You don't know that's a book either? Okay, cool. The one I think has the most potential, though, to kind of end up like a Game of Thrones situation is Wheel of Time. Another Amazon show that is incredibly ambitious. I'm not super familiar with the book series, but I know it's 15 books, so they have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to material. And, I believe those books actually came to an end as well, so they'll have a starting and stopping point, unlike Game of Thrones. But it has Rosamund Pike as one of the leads.
Who's amazing.
She's incredible. She's so good. And then everyone else is relatively unknown, much like Game of Thrones. So could we see this kind of magical Harry Potter-esque world with all these unknown actors really, really take stage and have people talking about new talents, the same way we all lost our minds over, Jason Momoa and Emilia Clarke, who we'd never really seen in anything before. I think that one could sweep. Watchmen, I think, is a little too political for everyone to be involved with. And also, it's deferring from the source material. So
the thing about the Wheel and Time stuff is that it also seems a little bit inaccessible, like as a subject matter. That's why I'm not going with that one myself, because I feel like just the subject matter is a little bit inaccessible for a lot of audiences, whereas Game of Thrones kind of made it in such a way that it was, while deep and great politics and drama, it was very digestible. They presented it in a way that was very digestible. And I wonder if they're going to be able to crack the code on that show. We'll have to wait and see. What do you guys think about that? What out of all these great listed shows do you think has the most potential? Remember, it could be any one of them, and all of them could absolutely suck. But which one do you think might have that potential? It's funny. Out of all the potential next Game of Thrones shows, the one that we never mentioned was the actual next Game of Thrones show,
true.
Which they have that prequel series coming out. But anyway, which one do you think has the best potential right now? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, that will do it for our main topics today. But now listen, guys, we've got a number of other things that we need to address here in the world of movie news and entertainment that we don't have time to make main topics. But we want to make sure you guys get caught up to date on all the stuff that's going on in the world of this stuff. So this is a little segment we call Buy or Sell. And the first thing we're going to start off with is this. Now, we all know that Godzilla King of the Monsters had a little bit of a, well, let's just call it a appearance in the movies and at the movie theater. Didn't do as well as they were kind of hoping it would do. Of course, that follows up King Kong. And now we got Godzilla King of the Monsters coming. In a recent interview, he was being asked about whether the director knows what it's going to be rated and all that kind of stuff. And he actually said, well, I'll doubt that they'll let me go hard on that, go hard R on that. They'll just have a precedent of all those other films being PG-13, so I'm sure I'll kind of get shoehorned into that. Monster movies need to always be on the edge of being rated R, but ultimately you want it to be to appeal to kids too. When I say that, it's coming from a guy whose favorite movies as a kid was Aliens and Terminator 2. Let me ask you, Chris, do you buy or sell the idea that this Godzilla versus King Kong certainly doesn't need to be rated R?
I buy it. Kaiju is for everyone. Make it accessible.
So I'm going to say, you know what? I buy it as well. I completely agree with what he's saying here. It makes sense. The other ones were PG-13. I don't think we need to see King Kong pick up a human being, rip off his little tiny head, and then chug his blood like a shot.
But boy, would I like to see it.
on Ladies' Night. Yeah, I just don't think it needs this. I don't think that needs to absolutely happen. So I'm going to take a buy on that. All right, let's move on to the next thing here. Black Panther 2 we know is coming. And we already talked about the fact that one of the stars of the film, Martin Freeman, has already confirmed that he is going to be back for a second go-round. Now, going one step beyond that, he's actually commented on when he thinks this movie is going to be shot. He said the following. He goes, "The last I heard, we won't be doing it until next year." So there you go. So it might be 2021 when we're making the next Black Panther. That's all I know. Chris, considering the fact that we saw that in 2020 and 2021, there was no Black Panther. Yeah. It makes sense that we weren't expecting this movie to come until 2022 or 2023. Exactly. Anyway, that to me makes it sound like 2021 is perfectly applicable. So I buy what Martin Freeman is saying. Martin Freeman is saying that this is going to be a 2021 probably production date. What about you?
I buy it. And not because Freeman's saying it, but because the timetable makes sense.
It absolutely does. All right, let's move on to the next one here. The next one up is this. Christian Slater, Yahya Gosling, Akira Akbar, Pedro Pascal, and more join Robert Rodriguez's We Can Be Heroes at Netflix. Now, this is an interesting sounding show. It's Robert Rodriguez, who's a little bit hit and miss. He just did a nice little job, though, on his newest movie, Alita Battle Angel, which I actually quite enjoyed. But this is the idea. The movie, which is going to be a Netflix original movie, the movie follows the children of Earth's superheroes after their parents have been kidnapped by alien invaders. The children must team up and learn to work together if they want to save their parents and the world. Now, we got Christian Slater and all that kind of joining the cast as well. Already people like Boyd Holbrook reuniting with Pedro Pascal in there. So, of course, from Narcos fame. So let me ask you, Chris, buy or sell with this also edition cast, buy or sell the sounds of this little movie they got going on?
Buy it. I don't have superhero fatigue. That cast sounds crazy, and I gotta support a good Austin boy.
There you go. All right, let's move on to the next one. Next one up here is this. Annabelle Wallis, who a lot of you guys might remember from the recent Mummy movie, which, while not everybody loved the Mummy, I actually thought she was pretty good in it. She was also in King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, and Tag, and a few other things. Apparently, she has been now attached to this upcoming mysterious James Wan new horror picture. All James Wan said about the upcoming horror picture, he's giving almost no details away, but he said, "There's been a bit of speculation as to what my next project is. All I'll say is I'm super excited to go back to my indie roots with this hard R thriller, an original horror idea, not a reboot, remake, or anything based on existing IP, with old school practical effects and no giant blue screen sets. That's all I'll say for now." With the addition of Annabelle Wallis, who I actually enjoyed watching her in The Mummy, even though it wasn't the greatest movie in the world, I thought she brought a lot of energy to the film. Adding her to a project like this, I gotta tell you, for me, this whole project is a buy. I'm very excited about it. Can't wait to see. What about you?
If I were a horror fan, this would be a buy. Doing a new horror film, not a franchise film, not the Conjuring cinematic universe or whatever, is very, very interesting. But since I'm not a horror fan, sell it and get it away from me.
And burn it with fire.
Burn it with fire.
All right, and the last one up here is this. Oh, Movie Pass. Oh, Movie Pass. They're back in the news again. Bum, 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 bum. Like, it's just me. Like, you just hear the Benny Hill music in the back of your head whenever Movie Pass gets mentioned.
I finally watched the Movie Pass video that one of the fans recommended. The CEO one?
It's so funny.
God, it's so funny.
Oh my God, it's so funny. Anyway, Movie Pass is in the news again. And if you're asking yourself, wait a minute, they're still a thing? Yep, they're apparently still a thing. Now, on top of everything else, apparently Movie Pass left one of their main servers that has users' Movie Pass card information and credit card information without needing a password. And apparently that server got exposed online. It's unknown right now how many of their customers' credit card information and personal information has been leaked online. Yet another round of thing like this. Anyway, Chris, let me ask you, buy or sell this concept? Movie Pass will be done within the next 3 months. They're going to be dead and gone. Buy or sell that notion?
I mean, buy, but it seems like a cockroach, doesn't it? It keeps coming back. At the end of the world, it's going to be Keith Richards and Movie Pass.
Listen, I also buy the notion they're going to be gone in 3 months, but take it with this grain of salt. I thought they would be dead and buried by December.
Yeah.
And yet here they are.
They're still kicking. They're a Timex.
Somehow clinging to life that they don't deserve, and they're still sticking around somehow, some way.
Why are we surprised about any of this too? I mean, we knew they were data mining. Everything was bad. This has not been a good business model. Just move it past, guys. Hi.
They just
Go
need to die.
away.
This is a concept
Go
that
away.
needs to die.
It's
Go
just
away.
embarrassing now.
And that will do it for that installment of Buy and Sell, folks. Hey, listen, we're going to now take the rest of the show to go ahead and take your live questions. You guys have been firing in a whole bunch of live questions. I'm sure you've got a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we do all that, we're going to say goodbye here to Chris Carr, who's got some things she needs to be doing today. So, Chris, thanks a lot for being here. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at actor Chris Carr. I've almost beat my dad for Twitter followers, you guys. I'm so excited. Don't follow a lawyer who's changing the legal system. Follow a girl who makes cat butt jokes. You can also see my videos on YouTube at Nerdwire.
All right. Thanks a lot for being here, Chris. And guys, we're not just going to take a quick little break. So we've been going now for almost an hour. Going to go refill my drink, take a breather, give the voice a little bit of a rest. We're going to be back in just a couple minutes with your live questions. Hang tight. We'll be right back. And we are back. Thank you guys for allowing me to take a little bit of a break. And now we are carrying on with our live questions today. You guys have been firing in a whole ton of them. So let's jump over to it and start addressing those right now. First one's coming to us from Coolsome XD, who writes, Disney split to say all future MCU movies on Disney Plus. No, I don't think so. First of all, even if that's what they wanted to do, Coolsome XD, that doesn't negate the possibility of them still doing a deal with Sony in some way, shape, or form. So no, I don't think the MCU, they make most of their money from the theaters. They're not planning on abandoning the theaters. They're making $1 billion a film at this point. They're not about to abandon that. So I don't think that's kind of in their mind right now. Benny95 writes, the Tobey Maguire in the MCU I mentioned ago is someone has edited clips of Raimi's movies into the MCU, and some are hilarious, and you should YouTube it. Okay, I gotta say, Benny, that does sound kind of funny. I will keep do me a favor if you don't mind, Benny. Can you email me a couple of links? Just email me to john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. If you could email me that and send me a couple of those links, I would love to see it because that sounds really funny. Thanks for the heads up. Kevin Lewis writes, over under 20%, Disney backs down and gets half of what they want, plus more than they had regarding Spider-Man's IPs. Well, number one, Sony will never give up any of the IP rights. Nor should they. They'd have to be total morons to do that. They cannot give up any of the IP rights, and they cannot agree to let Sony co-finance the films. They simply can't do it. Here's a good example why, okay? Here's an example why. Let's just take a funny example, okay? Night Monkey, right? Let's take Night Monkey for an example. Okay, from, of course, Spider-Man Far From Home. Well, who owns Night Monkey? It's not Disney. It's not Marvel. Sony owns the concept of Night Monkey. Why does Sony own the concept of Night Monkey? Because Sony paid for that movie. Sony exclusively financed Spider-Man Far From Home. That means anything original to that movie, like, for example, Happy Hogan. That's not originate. Happy Hogan doesn't originate in Spider-Man Far From Home. That's a Marvel thing. It's a pre-existing thing. That belongs to them. Absolutely. But like Night Monkey, that character or that fictitious rumor of a character debuted in that movie, a movie that is financed by Sony. They have the rights to it. If Disney had been a part financer of that movie, Disney would have part legal claim to that character and that IP. And now all of a sudden, Sony can't do whatever they want with it. They would have to do things. I mean, it's just something you cannot do. Sony spent a lot of energy and a lot of money acquiring these IP rights. They cannot give that up. So I believe, at least I'm hoping, that Disney will become more reasonable, come back to the table, and accept something like 20% of box office. I think that's not unreasonable. It's not great, but it's not unreasonable to get that much. So I hope something like that gets done. They just cannot get any more of the IP. They cannot get any rights to the IP. That's something Sony cannot allow to happen. All right. Hans writes, hey gang, there is an upside with the Disney-Sony split. The next Spider-Man villain won't be someone Stark cut off and track it. Yeah, listen, I agree. I agree. It is kind of funny. Like in Homecoming, it's somebody that didn't like Tony Stark. In Far From Home, somebody who didn't like Tony Stark. I get it. But let's be fair, though. It was only 2 movies. It's not like they made 8 movies in a row and every single villain was somebody that, I like the way you put it, Hans, that Stark cut off in traffic. I like the way you put that. But again, though, let's be fair. It was only 2 in a row. All right. Brian Rogers writes, my 2019 favorites is Rocketman. That was great. Endgame, Long Shot. I really like Long Shot. Well, first of all, I really like, obviously, all the films I know. I really like Rocketman. Not as good as Bohemian Rhapsody, but I liked it quite a bit. Endgame, for me, was fantastic. Long Shot, I thought was really funny. My favorite is still Booksmart. I still think that's the best movie of the year so far, but we're getting into the season now where we're going to start seeing more of the high caliber movies. Harry Mudd writes, big gaming night last night, John? It was. We had a fantastic gaming night last night. And a little bit later today, I'm going to edit some clips together from our game session and put it up so you guys can kind of see the game session we had. And then next, if you guys like it, next week, I'll put up a longer stretch of the game so you can see us playing the game. But I'm going to put up a little taste of it a little bit later today to see if you guys like it or if you even care. It's really, really low quality, just to warn you guys in advance. Like, I don't put We didn't put a lot of effort into it. We didn't set up multiple cameras and get really high. We basically use very low quality, a webcam to shoot some stuff, but I'm going to put it up later. I'm going to see if you guys enjoy it. If you do, great. If you don't, whatever. But if you do like it, we'll put up more of it next week. All right. Harry Mudd writes, The Running Man is still good cheese. Arnie in his prime. Oh, The Running Man is good cheese. You know, there are movies, you know, cheesy is one of those words where it can be a very positive thing or it could be a very negative thing. You know, it could be positive or negative, depending on your point of view on it. But to me, Harry, that is a great example of a cheesy movie that is absolutely delicious fromage. Just really in all the best ways. And it's not just cheesy. It's got a lot of other good elements to it as well. But I agree with you 100%, man. All right. Christopher Benson writes, have either of you seen the 88 cult masterpiece Dead Heat with Treat Williams and Joe Piscopo? They were reanimated zombie cops. It's stupid fun. I got to tell you, nope, I haven't seen it. Now, this sounds like a movie that I would not be surprised at all to find out that Robert Meyer Burnett actually owns the DVD. It just sounds like one of those films where Robert probably owns the damn DVD for that. Or Steelbook Blu-ray Collector's Edition. It does sound... Joe Piscopo as a reanimated zombie cop. It sells itself, Christopher. It completely sells itself. Thanks for putting that on the radar. All right. Harry Mudd writes, Chris, I have, yeah, it is. Love Dead Heat. Oh, you're talking about the previous question. Oh, well, there you go. There's somebody right there who's seen it. Well done. Harry Mudd. Here is Sub-Zero, now Plane Zero, The Running Man. I don't remember the line off the top of my head, unfortunately. I don't get likes writes. Tom Holland unfollowed Sony on Instagram. Look, first of all, can I just say how stupid it is that anybody thinks that's a story? It's like, so-and-so liked a tweet from so-and-so. Come on. Really? So we're talking. It's a non-story. It's a non-story. Coolsome XD writes, Sly does action in new Rambo. Will he box in Rocky 6? Oh, I doubt it. Like when you look at, because they're different characters. Look, Sylvester Stallone could still easily get in the ring and make it look like he's fighting. He absolutely could. But his character of Rocky Balboa has moved beyond that, right? So actually, you know, in Creed 2, there was the stories going around that, you know, Stallone specifically said, I'm never going to be with my shirt off. I don't want to show off how in shape I am because Rocky Balboa is supposed to be a little bit more frail now. I mean, he's still in good shape, clearly, but more frail than Sylvester Stallone, the man, is. Whereas in Rambo, he's playing a different character. So I don't think we're going to see him box in whatever the next Rocky movie is. Technically speaking, Rocky Balboa is Rocky 6, right? Balboa, can't that be considered Rocky 6? Anyway, Sean Anthony writes, one of two. Sony should use Peter B. Parker, Tobey Maguire, for their next live action movie. That way, no reboot, and they can introduce Miles and Gwen. And two of two, Holland's Spider-Man stay at Disney. Imagine the crossover potential. Oh, that would be terrible. MCU Spidey meeting Sony Spidey. Or is that just oversaturation? Anyways, thanks. Well, first of all, you got to understand, Sean, neither company would agree to that. Like, if Sony would not allow, they own Spider-Man. They're not going to allow another company to make Spider-Man movies. It's just not going to happen. Because, first of all, it's going to divide the audience base. You're just going to create problems. There's no way. Plus, I mean, listen, Tobey Maguire do we want to see a 46-year-old, 47-year-old Spider-Man? Hey, Google, how old is Tobey Maguire? Keep forgetting how old Tobey Maguire
is 44 years old.
Sorry, 44. Do we want to see a 44-year-old Spider-Man? I don't think so. Not at this point. So no, there's just no scenario there, Sean, in which that worked. Now, that would make for a very interesting YouTube video, a fun little college humor YouTube video, for sure. But there is no way Disney would agree to that, and there's no way Sony would agree to that. So that's just kind of a impossible scenario, and it would just cause division amongst the fans. You know, is Sony going to make a Spider-Man and then allow Disney to make a live-action Spider-Man just to have the Marvel hardcore people just bash the Sony one and praise the other one, or vice versa? It's not a good situation, and it's just something that probably neither of them, again, in any reality would ever agree to, and understandably so. I like the way you're thinking, though. It's just that it's an impossible situation. Ryan Lohner writes, I have all the information about when The Flash and the New Mutants are coming out, but I can't say anything over the phone. Meet me at Murder Peak at midnight. That's a nice little way to integrate the whole thing in the thing, but I can't tell you over the phone. One of the most frustrating movie cliches of all time, and I like the way you incorporated that in there, Ryan. That's funny. Right, Ron G writes, Rob, who's not here, I watched Free Enterprise and really liked it, and I'm not just saying that so Aaron won't yell at me. Hey guys, listen, if you get a chance, Robert Meyer Burnett's feature film directorial debut with William Shatner called Free Enterprise, go check it out. Look, it's no Oscar movie, but I had fun watching it. I think it's fun. Now, granted, I'm biased because I know the creator, I know the director, obviously Robert Meyer Burnett, but I'll tell you what, I honestly believe I still enjoy that film even if I didn't know Robert. You guys should check it out if you get a chance. Ron G also writes, he said Han Solo was cooler than Captain Kirk, and it won't let me say the rest. LOL, my favorite line from the film. There's so much good stuff. And again, I always got to remind myself, oh yeah, Robert actually directed William Shatner in a film. It's just absolutely nuts. KW Garrett 83 writes, at the end of Far From Home extended cut, Spider-Man slips on a banana peel and dies. Fury says, to honor Spider-Man, no one will reference him ever again. And there you go. That's how you move forward in the MCU without ever having to acknowledge Spider-Man. And honestly, it's not going to be that hard. It's really not going to be that hard. A lot of Avengers and everything only ever met that kid once, right? So it's not like he was an integrated, essential part of that team. He had just sort of showed up for a minute. Stark knew him, but Stark's dead. And then he had minor exposure to other characters. Like Doctor Strange probably had the most exposure to him, and he only knew him for a few hours, right? So it's actually not going to be all that hard. I still hope they'll work out a deal, but if they don't, it's actually not going to be that hard for them to figure out a way to just pretend like the character never existed. Let's see where we're at here. J Meister 25 writes, I'm sorry, but Spider-Man was built up to be the next major MCU character. It's going to be extremely awkward and weird without his presence. But again, I think if you actually look at the MCU, he had very little exposure to any of the other MCU characters, right? Like in Civil War, a few characters saw him for that 15-minute fight and never saw him again. Then, Doctor Strange saw him, right? And Wong saw him, and Bruce saw him, but only for a short period of time. Hours. A matter of hours. And then in Endgame, he just sort of shows up during the last fight and then goes back to New York and gets ready for a summer vacation after Tony dies. I mean, the fact of the matter is when you really sit down and look at it, it's not even like Captain Marvel, who Captain Marvel has been working closely with the remaining Avengers during the years of the snap, right? So she would have a bigger footprint there, whereas Spider-Man's footprint is actually very, very small. Like to us, the audience, it seems big. But if you really look at it, how much exposure have all the other characters in the MCU had to Peter? Other than Tony, who's now dead, very few. Very, very few. So I actually don't think it's going to be as awkward as we might think. Again, though, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we won't have to worry about it because that Sony and Disney will become more level-headed and they'll actually work out a deal. KW Garrett 83 writes, still love Erin even if she is responsible for my demise. Greatly appreciate all the hard work John, Chris, Rob, Ray, and Erin put into the show every day. Well, thanks so much for that, KW. It's always great when you write that in. And again, Erin, she wanted to be here so badly, but again, she was just under the weather today. She couldn't make it. She loves being here on these days, but sadly she couldn't make it today. But thanks for giving her that shout out there, KW. Jesse Lopez writes, with Disney just buying Fox and spending $71 billion, do you think that was one of the reasons why Disney asked for so much profits from Sony? No, I don't, because those profits aren't going to amount in the grand scheme of things. In the light of $71 billion, the profit they're going to get from Spider-Man doesn't compare to that. So I don't think that really has anything to do with it. To me, it really wasn't about the percentage of box office. To me, it was really about they wanted Sony to to allow them to have a co-financing agreement, because when they finance some of the movie, they get some of the rights to those movies. And that is something Sony will never budge on. At least they shouldn't. Who knows what they'll do, but they shouldn't. No studio would. And so it's about getting their foot in the door to getting the rights back to Sony. And it's I mean, hey, if Sony gives it to them, good on them. But that is something Sony cannot do and will not do. And I think it's really more a play about getting their foot in the door with a co-financing agreement so they can have legal claim to some of the rights to those characters in the films. Mike Hill writes, hey, Chris, as a fellow anime fan, I would love to see Dragon Ball Z redone. Would you be up for it? Obviously, I can't answer that for Chris. Unfortunately, she had to split a little bit early today. But I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that she would probably be up for it. She loves all that stuff, Mike. So I've got to at least guess that she would be up for it. Jared Oberfeld writes, anime recommendation, Your Name. Two strangers find themselves linked in a bizarre way. When a connection forms, will distance be what keeps them apart? That's an interesting tagline. Will distance, which suggests they're apart, be what keeps them apart? That is an interesting tagline. Thanks for the heads up on that, Jared. Sharan Aurora writes, if the MCU doesn't need Spider-Man, then why set him up as Iron Man Jr.? Well, look, there's a difference. There is a difference between need and benefit. There's a difference. Look, do I need ice cream? No, I don't need ice cream. But oh my God, do I love having ice cream? You're damn right I do. I am an ice cream fanatic. I have a problem when it comes to ice cream. I cannot resist ice cream. God, now I'm thinking about ice cream. Anyway, there's a difference between need and, taking advantage of something that you can do some really cool things with. They loved having Spider-Man there and they wanted to do some great things with them, but do they need him? Obviously, the fact that you've got 10 major projects coming out in the next 2 years in theaters and on Disney Plus, and none of them involve Spider-Man, how could you possibly say they need him when you've got 2 years and 10 projects and none of them involve him? Clearly, they don't need him. But could they benefit from him? Hell yes. Hell yes. They had some fun plans for him. They really did. Zombatron5678 writes, if they continue with Tom Holland's movies, do you think the general audience will still think his Spider-Man is part of the MCU? Kind of confusing. It is a little confusing. I think the general audience will catch on, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, ultimately, it really doesn't really matter. I think they can easily just jump into their movie, pretend like the other stuff didn't exist, and it works out. Will it cause a little bit of confusion? Yes. Yeah, it will. Will a little bit of confusion sink it? Not at all. Not at all. Look, if they do another one with Tom Holland and they put out trailers and the trailers look great, everybody's going to be excited. And listen, if they can't get a deal made, and I still hope that they can, but if they can't, the next Sony Spider-Man movie will make minimum $700 million. It's just that they will make minimum $700 million. Will there be a little confusion? Yes, but I think it'll be short-lived and they'll get over it. And I think everybody will get on board with it. It all depends on if the movie's good. Will it be Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, The Amazing Spider-Man 1? Or will it be a Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2? That will have a lot to do with it, of course. Murray Reich writes, I like that photo yesterday from Ray of the Vader Mickey Mouse ears and Lando. Is Sony with the caption, I have altered the deal? I love that. I love that. Actually, let me see if I can bring that up again. Because originally he tried to put in, I have altered the deal. And I think we might have lost it. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, I lost the one with the caption of I have altered the deal. I lost that one. But I do like this. I am altering the deal, Sony. Pray I do not alter it further. I really did like that graphic that Ray put together. That was a good one. Anatol Dees writes, hey crew, initial with A here. Oh, again, I said Anatol. It's initial. Eventually, someday, I will remember that. Initial writes, what are the chances this was Disney's plan all along? To make Spidey integral to the MCU and so popular that Sony couldn't refuse because of the fan backlash would be. Here's the thing. Fan backlash is a myth. It's a myth. Everybody you're seeing online getting all upset about this represent about 5% of the movie-going audience. We talk about that all the time. Like, those of us in these sequels and who talk about in these circles and who talk about this stuff, we represent a minority of the overall movie-going audience. What it will come down to, if that was Disney's plan, it was a poor plan. It was a poor plan. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I really don't think it's going to have any problem at all. Look, at the end of the day, real movie fans don't give a shit which studio a movie comes from. All real movie fans care about is the movie you're putting in front of me right now, is it a good movie? That's all real movie fans care about. The movie you're putting in front of me, is it a good movie? And if Sony, and that's a big if Sony makes a new movie and they have a terrific marketing campaign, they do a good job with it, and the movie is solid and good, it's going to be fine. You can have everybody in the world crying and whining about it. It doesn't online. It won't matter. The general movie-going audience will go and see it if it looks good, and then if word of mouth can carry it, if it is quality. That's the bottom line. You and me and everybody else can cry and whine, and I can call, BS on Disney, and I can yell at Disney and Sony for not getting their asses in a room and sit down and work out a deal and blah, blah. And I can do that all I want. I can whine and complain and spit and yell and roar and do whatever I want. That's fine. But at the end of the day, the general movie-going audience who don't watch shows like the John Campea Show or read Variety every day or hop on Reddit every day, which is the vast majority of the movie-going audience, the general movie-going audience isn't going to care about any of that stuff. All they're going to care about is, does that movie look good? Does it seem exciting? And then when some people see it, is it good word of mouth? Does it get positive buzz? I'll be honest with you. I thought nobody was going to go see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I thought it was a dumb idea for a movie. You guys remember? Remember? First of all, when they announced Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I said, this is a dumb idea. When the first trailer for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out, I said, this doesn't look good. This doesn't look good. But a lot of the other people thought it did. And then word of mouth and reviews started coming out. Oh my God. And all of a sudden, this movie that should have made $50 million, most, almost made $400 million. I mean, so that's what it comes down to, man. And with all the whining, everybody, see, we are very myopic as a group of people. Actually, everybody's myopic in this. We think whatever people in our circles think is what everybody thinks, right? That's a condition. There's actually a few sociological terms for that. That we as individuals, there's a tribal nature to us where we believe that if the people in our circle think something and believe something, then we have a natural extension of that sociologically into thinking then that's what everybody thinks, right? And the fact of the matter is that's just not the case. And I'm always surprised by that myself. Like I'm often rudely awake and say, oh yeah, just because me and all my friends think that, it didn't mean everybody else was going to think that. You know what I mean? So I think ultimately that's what's going to come down to, man. All right. That was one of two from Initial. And then Initial writes, what it is. Okay. They thought they had the upper hand, but it backfired. Also, hope you and Aaron liked the new gifts I made. Love the show. You all crack me up. I am not familiar with what the gifts are. I have not seen such gifts or GIFs, whichever one you tear. Don't get a Nazi on me on that. I'm not quite sure what those are, but I'd love to see them. Initial also writes, Chris, I'll give you two. This trio on Thursdays is awesome. I do. And again, we regret that Erin couldn't be here today, which really sucks, but she extends her apologies for not being able to be here today. Ben Rayner writes, hi, John and gang. Hope you liked that TV intro I made of you guys. Had fun making it. I did. For those of you guys who are Patreon supporters, and our Patreon supporters, we have an exclusive Facebook group for us and our Patreon supporters. Ben put up this really fun little cut of an intro to Full. I believe it wasn't Full. Was it Full House or was it the Cameron, the Kirk Cameron show? No, it wasn't. No. Which one was it? Anyway, it's a fun little one. You should go check it out if you guys are one of our Patreon supporters. You go check it out. It's on the Facebook page. Chris Warden writes, Ken Yoshida and Bob Iger both realize that having Spidey in the MCU is beneficial to both brands, so I'm still holding out hope that a deal gets done. See, here's the thing. At some point, I think these are the guys that got to get involved. Because right now, neither of them have been in the negotiations. It's been their top generals. It's been their top generals that have been involved in negotiations, but neither of these guys have been directly involved in negotiations. I think what needs to happen is Bob needs to give Ken a call and say, hey, I'll tell Robert Meyer Burnett to skip our next squash game. Why don't you come and play with me and let's hash this out? And I think you got to get the big dogs. I think at this point, you got to get the big dogs in the room and let the big dogs work this out. And hopefully, Chris, you're right, and hopefully they get this thing done and cooler heads will prevail. All right, Ben Rayner writes, Harvey Dent about Disney. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Yeah, I think in this I'm very clear on this. I've been very forthright about this. I think in this particular story, Disney is the villain. I do. And I love Disney. Everybody knows I love Disney. But in this particular story, Disney is the villain. It doesn't matter how much of a fan I am of a lot of their other stuff. I'm not going to have blinders on my eyes. I look at the circumstances, I look at what we've got in front of us, and it's just clear as day Disney is in the wrong here. And I hope they come to their senses. I hope that they and Sony will sit down, get the big dogs in the room, and let this thing come out. Because right now, I mean, you might have a lot of the blindly loyal fanboys fooled right now, but long term, it's going to shake out. People will look back on this situation and see, wow, what Disney was asking for was completely irrational. And history's not going to judge this kindly, I don't think. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Anthony Cullen writes, Spidey left the MCU on Andrew Garfield's birthday. Is that true? Oh my God, was that Andrew Garfield's birthday? If so, there is some poetic justice to that. It feels like there's a little bit of poetic justice there. If that's the case, Andrew Garfield's like, happy birthday to me, if that's the case. Robert Johnson writes, you know what sounds like terrible movie ideas? Aunt May, Silver and Black, Craven, Morbius. Oh, I 1000% disagree. Aunt May, yes, that's why they axed it. Silver and Black, I thought that sounded pretty interesting, but they axed it. Craven? Sounds like a fucking awesome idea. I would love to see a Craven movie. I think that sounds amazing. If that doesn't work for you, that's cool. But to me, I think a Craven movie, I'm dying to see them do a Craven movie. And I'm really, really interested. Me and Robert were both talking about it. We really like the idea of this Morbius movie. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, and that's totally cool. But I think those particular ones sound absolutely awesome. All right, Robert Johnson follows up with, you know what sounds like a great movie ideas? Aunt May, Happy, Silver and Black, Widow, Craven versus Black Panther, Aunt May and Happy, Silver and Black Widow, Craven versus Black Panther, Morbius versus Blade. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Happy and Aunt May is a cool little side story to have in another movie. That's fine. Silver and Black Widow, Craven versus Black Panther. Okay, you've got my attention. I prefer to see Craven versus Venom. I think that sounds far more intriguing. But Craven versus Black Panther, you got my attention there. Morbius versus Blade, that's got some interest in there as well. That's actually not a bad one too. Ben Rayner writes, hey John, look on the upside, no more Iron Man Jr. I know, in the midst of all this, there are some silver linings. Silver lining number one, well, at least it won't be Iron Man Jr. anymore. Silver lining number two, we could actually see Tom Holland and Tom Hardy together in a Venom and Spider-Man movie. That's pretty exciting to me. I would still much rather see Disney and Sony get their acts together and make a deal, but there are some silver linings if everything does go south. Harry Mudd writes, as you said yesterday, John, First Blood is truly unique in the whole franchise. It stands out above the rest. It's a very, very different kind of film. So that's the funny thing. If the character in First Blood wasn't named John J. Rambo, it would be hard to imagine that that First Blood is in the same film franchise as all the other Rambo movies. First Blood is such a different movie than Rambo 2 and 3 and whatever. It's just so different. And yeah, it absolutely stands out. It's not just the best movie in the franchise. It's a fabulous movie overall. And a lot of you guys haven't seen that original First Blood. I mean, it's an old film, but if you haven't seen the original First Blood, that's the first movie with Rambo, with Sylvester Stallone. Make sure you watch it because it's damn good. Anyway, Trigger Wolf 95 writes, I just hope this whole Disney Sony mess ends like the James Gunn situation did. Disney checks ego, backpedals, and does what's best for the audience. Likely? I don't know that I'd say likely, but I think there's hope. I think there's hope. Look, one of the good things here is that Disney has shown that they're not worried about saving face, right? If Disney was worried about saving face, then they never would have gone back and brought James Gunn back into the fold, because that made them look a little bit silly. But they're more concerned about doing the right thing, even if they look silly doing it. Because Alan Horn had to publicly look a little bit silly for firing James Gunn in the first place by bringing him back. But he doesn't care. He's Alan Horn. He's willing to do that. Look, this is what's best for business. This is what's best for our brand. This is what's best. So I'm going to do it, even if it makes me look little bit silly for firing him in the first place. And I got to applaud that. That's a great attitude. So since Disney has shown in the past that they're less concerned about saving face and more concerned about what's right for business, I got to believe that there's still hope that this thing can get worked out. If they were a more prideful company that went, we said no, so we can never change our minds, then I would have less hope. But they have shown in the past that they are willing to change their direction based on what they believe is best for business. So because of that, I'm holding out hope. Likely, no. But is there hope? I believe there is, and we'll see how that turns out. Hyperdrive, or from Harry, Hyperdrive dropped on Netflix today, a riveting racing contest. Never even heard of it, but then again, I'm not surprised how much stuff drops on Netflix that I've never even heard of before, because Netflix is terrible at marketing their programming. JCL Productions writes, John, I saw your movie and Aaron body slams me through a table, hurt groans, and it was great. Best rant ever, just teasing you all. Awesome, even KW. Well, thank you so much for that, JCL. I appreciate that. Look, by real movie standards, I'll be the first one to tell you, my little movie, The Anniversary, does not even enter into the conversation by real movie standards. I'll be the first one to tell you that. It just doesn't. But as a guy who had no idea of what the F he was doing, as a guy who, one of my main motivations for making that movie was to give me a better appreciation for what real filmmakers do. I wrote it, I directed it, I produced it. And one of the big reasons, besides the fact that it's a bucket list thing, I made my own movie. A lot of people talk about making their own movie. I actually did it. And I feel good about that. But one of my other main motivations was just so I can have a better appreciation for what it is these artists that I talk about all the time, for what it is these artists do. And it gave me a huge appreciation for what these filmmakers do. It really, really did. And again, so on that level, as a guy who didn't know what the F he was doing, who had never done anything like that before, I am very proud of my little movie, The Anniversary, but I have no delusions of grandeur that it's a worthy No, it's garbage by Hollywood's. It's garbage by real movie standards, but I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. So thank you for the kind words, JCL. Lee Mallinson writes, why don't Sony negotiate with Disney for a percentage of the... Okay, hold on a second, Lee. Okay, let me finish reading what you said. Why doesn't Sony negotiate with Disney for a percentage of the MCU films? Since Spidey joined the MCU, Civil War and Avengers movies have almost doubled in gross. Okay, true. But that's like saying, why doesn't Disney negotiate to have Bob Iger cut off his penis and feed it to a puppy? Well, okay. Go into a negotiating room and see if you can get Bob Iger to agree to that. No way. Why doesn't Sony negotiate? Because there's no way in hell Disney agrees to that. There's no way in hell Disney agrees to that. There is nothing on heaven or earth that would get Disney and Marvel to agree to give Sony or anybody a percentage of their MCU movie box office. There is no force on heaven or earth that will make Disney do that. No way. So it's obvious why Sony would like that. Now, obvious. But it's like, why don't I come to you and say, John, why don't you go to that guy's house and negotiate to have him give you his house and his car? Because why would he do that? He wouldn't do that. There's no way. But see, you bring up a good point here, Lee. One of the things a lot of people overlook is the fact that it's not just the 5% of first dollar gross that Marvel gets from the standalone Spider-Man movies. As I've said ad nauseum, they also get 100% of the merchandising rights, which is worth a fortune. And they get to make more money on their movies that they put Spider-Man in, and they don't have to share any of that money with Sony. They get to use Sony's character, Spider-Man, in their MCU movies, and Sony doesn't get a single dollar of that. They keep all of it. There's no way that Marvel gives that up. So it's easy for us to say, well, why doesn't Sony ask for it? I'm sure they did ask for it, but there is no way Marvel gives that up. No way. Unless there's something ridiculously compelling, but I just don't see it happening. All right. Orange Hand writes, number 1 of 2. My dream reboot would be an early 90s Canadian show with Ryan Reynolds called The Odyssey, about a kid who hits his head, falls into a coma, and finds himself in a fantasy world where no one reaches 16. He seeks a way home with 2 friends who look like real world kids, hunted by the teen police state, who fear he's the fabled wrecker who will bring back adults and end their reign. Whole show is on YouTube. I have never... that sounds a little bit like... what's the famous... Why am I freezing on the name of the famous sci-fi show? Logan's Run? It sounds a little Logan's Run-ish to me. I'll be honest with you. I've never even heard of this. At least I don't think I've heard of it. It doesn't ring a bell to me right now. So I don't think I've heard about it. But it's got a little bit of a Logan's Run feel to it. Did Ryan Reynolds actually star in such a show? Okay, I've got to look this up. I am Canadian. I have no recollection of this whatsoever. I've got to look that up because that sounds like it could be kind of fun. Let's see. James Germain writes, hey, John, good afternoon. I was wondering what is more likely to happen, a Revan movie or a Terra Vistla movie? Which would you prefer? Have a nice day. You know what, James? I know you sent in this question yesterday, and I remember I answered that in the companion video. Unfortunately, I didn't set the companion video live because I was delirious with sleepiness. But I will put that up a little bit. I'll tell you the same thing I said before, that I said in the companion video. Honestly, I'm not interested in either, to be honest with you. Now, obviously, the Revan stuff, I think if anything is more likely to happen, probably Revan. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not interested in either. That doesn't mean I don't like the stories of either. You know, Terra Vistla as like the original Mandalorian Jedi, the creator of the Darksaber, right? It's cool stuff there. I get that. All the stuff with Revan. But I like them where they are. I don't know that I'm interested in seeing a movie about either. I like their place in the mythology, but don't think I want a movie about either, personally. But if you're asking me which one is more likely, probably Revan. I think Revan would have a better chance because he's just more popular, more well-known with a lot of the hardcore Star Wars fans, more than Terra Vistla. But, I mean, there's some interesting mythology to Terra Vistla as well, so have to wait and see. All right. Milk and Cheese. Somebody took my advice and read some Milk and Cheese, it looks like. Milk and Cheese writes, hey, John, bought the Milk and Cheese comic collection thanks to the show, and I love it. Can't believe I had not heard of it previously. We are Milk and Cheese. We do as we please. Dairy gone bad. We've been talking about this comic strip for a while. I'm so glad you picked it up. It is ripping hilarious. It's super violent. It's completely not appropriate. All it is, for those of you who didn't hear me talking about it, it's literally a little carton of milk and a little block of cheese that have faces and hands and run around and beat the crap out of people. Like, it's just all violence. Milk and Cheese is just all violence, but it is hilarious. It is so funny. And I'm really glad you had a chance to get turned on to that. I feel like I spread the gospel of Milk and Cheese a little bit. That makes me feel good. So thank you for sharing that. All right. And I'm glad you're enjoying it. Raymond Verrata writes, Sony better throw in the kitchen sink in the next movie. Lord and Miller, J.K. Simmons, Hot Aunt May, Tom, Toby, Andrew, and time travel as well. Save Uncle Ben. I like the last part. Like, obviously, look, I do not like the idea of bringing in Toby and Andy. I don't like that idea at all. But the whole idea about make a part of the plot time travel, which I normally hate, but where they go back and save Uncle Ben. Oh my God, that would be hilarious because Uncle Ben is always dying. On a serious note, if a deal can't get made And they need to move forward and do... If they do need... Let me try this again. If they don't make a deal and Sony does move forward with their own next Spider-Man movie, I don't think we have to worry about them redoing the Uncle Ben storyline, because I think the next movie is still going to be Tom Holland. So that settles that. But if they ever have to relaunch it again, I really hope they don't retell the Uncle Ben story again. Just do what you did in Homecoming, where Spider-Man has been Spider-Man for a little bit now. Have him reflect back on what happened to Uncle Ben, maybe talk about what happened to Uncle Ben in one scene or something, but don't show us the Uncle Ben scene again. So maybe you don't do a time travel story where you save Uncle Ben, which would be damn funny, Raymond. But at least don't tell the whole Uncle Ben story again. We don't need that again. All right. Devontae Brown writes, John, Hollywood Reporter just reported that MoviePass was hacked and credit card info was leaked. I hope you're personally okay. I used PayPal. Well, I feel pretty safe about it because I had canceled a long time ago. And it wasn't just that they were hacked. They didn't have a server, an important server, password protected. I don't let my own personal computer not have a password on it. How do you leave a big server with tons of customer personal information, including credit card numbers and account numbers, and not have it at minimum password protected? I have no idea how bad how that happened. It's just yet another sad chapter in this whole story that is MoviePass. Bum, 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 bum. I mean, that's pretty. I feel like there should be a law that whenever now somebody moving forward, whenever somebody has to say MoviePass, it has to be followed with bum, 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 bum. So what do you think about today? Oh, not much. I was just reading the story about MoviePass. Bum. And they were saying that I think that should be a law. There should be a law. You should have to give that, or that little slow horn sound. Wah, wah. I think that should be a law. Whenever you say MoviePass, you have to go wah, wah. I think that should absolutely be a law. Make it happen, everybody. All right. Ezra Miaz writes, why Sony never let Disney Marvel control other characters on the MCU? Example, Norman, Kraven, Venom, Sony Spider-Man verse will be the problem. Huh? Why Sony never let Disney / Marvel control other characters on the MCU? Example, Norman, Kraven, Venom. Well, because Sony had their own plans for those characters. They made a Venom movie, made them $800 million, and they didn't need Marvel to do it. I mean, because it's their characters. Why should they let Marvel use them? They had their own plans for their own movies. It would be ridiculous. It would have been ridiculous for them to let Disney, unless Sony had a particular plan with it. But Sony had other plans. They had plans to make their own movieverse. And guess what? They're off to a resounding success. That Venom movie that everybody screamed, it'll never work. No one cares about a Venom movie without Spider-Man in it. It'll never work. It's going to fail. It's going to flop. And like I said all along, this movie's going to be a success. You watch. Now, even I didn't think it would make $800 million. I thought big success was going to be like $550 million, right? But even I, who thought it would be successful, I never thought it would make $800 million. I said it wouldn't happen. I said Venom won't make $800 million. Boom, made $800 million. Crazy. Then again, nobody thought Venom was going to make $100 million. But everybody said, never work. And what they do, they put out a really fun movie. Venom is a hell of a lot of fun. They put out a really fun movie, huge blockbuster hit, made well over $800 million. They're off to a great start. That's why they didn't let Marvel do it. Because they paid for those rights. They own those rights to make movies with those characters, and they want to make their own movieverse with it. That's why. Anyway, Hoser Miaz writes, reboot of Spider-Man is going to happen again. Maybe. And it'll either succeed or fail based on its own merits. Remember, when they announced that they were rebooting Spider-Man, but it had success. Maybe they'll reboot Spider-Man again. Maybe they don't have to. I still contend that they don't necessarily have to reboot it again. I think you can just carry on and ignore the MCU and the events of it and just keep going on with Tom as Spider-Man, and everything's fine. Doesn't mean that's the absolute only way they should do it. Doesn't necessarily mean it would work, but I think there's a way to do it without necessarily rebooting. Or maybe they reboot. Either way, it's fine. Let's see. Carter writes, seeing people say Lion King should win visual effects Oscar, I'm confused. Has any animated movie in history been nominated for best visual effects? You know what, Carter? That's a great question. I can't think of any, but I've got a little bell going off in the back of my mind that is telling me there maybe was. I'll just do a simple thing here. Animated movie nominated for best visual effects. Let's see if there's any listed here. Let's see. Animated films can also be nominated for other categories, but rarely have been so. Beauty and the Beast 1991 was the first animated film nominated for best picture. Yeah, I don't. You know what? That's a really interesting question, Carter. That's a really, because look, at the end of the day, what are a lot of visual effects today? A lot of visual effects today are digital effects, right? They're digital effects made in a computer. Well, what's a movie like Lion King? It's all digital effects being made in a computer. It's just that it's not interacting with a live action real world. So, I don't know. I don't know. But there's no reason we couldn't. I just don't know that the Academy is ready to see past that, though. It's a fascinating question, though, Carter. Do me a favor, Carter. If you research that and you find an answer as to whether any animated film has ever been nominated for best visual effects, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but please email me, john@thejohncampeashow.com, and let me know what you find. Carter also writes, I actually think the best Sony Spider-Man movies are better. Let me reread that again. I actually think that the best Sony Spidey movies are better than both Marvel made. I agree. Still having Holland, but under Sony's control seems great to me. Yeah, look, Homecoming and Far From Home are really good. I like them both very much. And I think they're both better than a number of Sony Spider-Man films. But I believe not just the best one, but I think the two best Spider-Man movies were made by Sony and not Marvel. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 2, which I still think both of those films are top 10 comic book movies of all time. And I think they're both better than anything Marvel has made, as far as Spider-Man goes. So I'm in agreement with you, man. I'm so good. But even though that's true, I still very much like the path that they're on. I like them having the shared joint custody, having Spider-Man standalone movies and Spider-Man in the MCU. Everybody's making money. All the fans are happy. Why they cannot get their heads and their mouse ears out of their asses and make a deal happen is completely beyond me right now. It really is. Everybody's making money. Everybody's feeling the love from the fans. Why would you jeopardize that by saying you want 50%, a co-financing agreement, still keeping 100% of the merchandising rights and keeping 100% of the box office of movies that have Spider-Man in them? Why Disney has jeopardized this great situation for everybody where everybody's making cash and all the fans are happy, it is beyond me. These two companies have got to get together and make something happen. But if they don't, I still think they'll both be fine. I think Sony doing Spider-Man on their own will be totally fine. I think Marvel moving on without Spider-Man will be totally fine. I just think it's better for both of them to get this deal made. So here's hoping cooler heads prevail, brother. All right. Raul BS writes, greetings from Costa Rica. What you all expect the most from D23? More MCU Phase 4 news, maybe some footage for Star Wars Episode 9 or Black Widow. Purta Vida. Here's the thing. I believe a couple of things. One, I don't know that we're getting Phase 4 news, but I do think we're going to get some news, maybe even a lot of it, about Marvel in 2022 and 2023. At Comic-Con, they focused on 2020 and 2021. I think, and I have no insider information, but I think they're going to focus on 2022 and 2023. So that's what I believe. I have, again, no insider information. They very well could talk nothing about it, but that's what I think. What I'm clearly most excited about is a Star Wars trailer. Now, they are 100% either going to give us a behind-the-scenes thing with a bunch of footage, or they're going to give us a trailer. At some point, it's just semantics, but whatever. They're going to give us something. I personally think it's going to be a trailer, even though historically that hasn't been the pattern. I still believe they're going to give us a trailer this year. They very well may not. They very well may not. But we're going to get something. And that's what excites me the most. And I 100% believe we're going to get Black Widow footage. 100% believe they're going to get Black Widow footage. So, and I'm still holding out hope that Bob Iger is going to be on stage and go, ladies and gentlemen, Sony chairman, Tom Rothman, and Sony's head guy, CEO, comes out, and they both go, listen up, mother effers, we're doing 10 more Spider-Man movies together. And like I said this on Twitter, doing the DX cross chop, we have the DX music playing, and everybody freaks out, and the audience goes wild, and the internet blows up. That's what I'm most looking forward to. All right, Obi writes, got my exam results and did really well. I'm happy. Congrats. Look, seriously, no matter how well prepared I've ever been for exams when I was in school, whether it was in high school, seminary, studying law, it doesn't matter. Whenever I was studying for exams, I was always stressed out. Didn't matter how prepared I felt, always stressed out. It's always such a great feeling when you get on the other side of it and you feel like you did well. That's always a good feeling, so good on you, Obi. Congrats. All right, Ben Rayner writes, John, you never have to apologize for anything you do too much. I don't know. Come on, I'm human. I say and do stupid things that I will regret sometimes, of course. And for such things, I need to apologize. Just like everybody. So, but I'm never going to apologize for my opinion. I'm never going to apologize for what I think. Maybe sometimes how I give my opinion or how I express what I think or whatever. But I mean, everybody should have the attitude that they should be ready and willing to apologize for something if they need to be. And that includes me. That includes you. And like everybody else, sometimes I'm oblivious to it, just like I'm sure everybody else is too. And I'm no different. But thank you for the vote of confidence, Ben. Blake Bueno writes, John Wick 3 motorcycle scene. Wow. Oh, it was crazy. I like the horse stuff even better. Personally, I like the horse stuff even better. But Blake, the entire movie of John Wick Chapter 3 is just wow. Not just the motorcycle scene. Everything about that movie to me was book scene, horse scene, a glass room scene. I mean, everything about that movie is wow, just wow. I just love that movie. I think it's the best of the John Wick franchise so far. Pat Fury writes, what's up, John? Date, marry, kill between James Bond, John Wick, and Ethan Hunt. Ooh, well... That's a Sophie's choice. I love all three of them, but I gotta go date John Wick, marry James Bond, kill Ethan Hunt. I don't want to lose Ethan Hunt by any stretch of the imagination, but if I gotta choose between Ethan Hunt or John Wick and James Bond, I'm taking John Wick and James Bond personally. But ooh, that's a tough one, dude. That is a tough one. Initial D's writes, welcome to the Zombie Campea Show. Yeah, it's woo. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what that means, we're a little bit late. I was up till 4:30 in the morning, recording a very long companion video from yesterday's show. And I set it to publish and go live at 4:45. So, because it was still processing and I didn't want to stay up and awake for it to finish processing. So I just set it to go live at 4:45. Went to bed, whatever. I woke up this morning to realize that it never published because I didn't set it to publish today at 4:45. I accidentally set it to publish tomorrow at 4:45. So I will bring it up here again. Yeah, here it is. This is the companion video. There it is. It's all set and ready to be published. And it's sitting there in YouTube. So shortly after I am done today's show, I will publish that companion video from yesterday and get that published. My apologies to everybody who was waiting for it. I apologize that I didn't get that up sooner. I meant to have it up sooner. I apologize. There you go, Ben. Here's an example where I need to apologize. I do apologize for the inconvenience, but it will be up short, not too long after today's show is done. So thank you for your patience, guys. All right. Blake Bueno writes, what happened to podcast? I believe the podcast is still going out to Patreon supporters. If that's where, wait a minute. Are you talking about the best movie, worst movie podcast? It's simple. Listen, one of the third person in our trio, there's me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and Olympic swimmer Cody Miller, who's right now in the middle of training. He's competing. He just competed at the Pan Am Games, and he's training for Olympic trials. It's just a little hard to get that time, but don't worry, it is coming back. We're going to record a bunch of episodes. We're going to do a season 2 of Best Movie, Worst Movie podcast. It is coming. Keep your eyes open for it. It just might be a little bit longer, but we'll get to it just as soon as we can. Because honestly, Rob and I don't want to do it without Cody. We don't want to do it without Cody. And he lives in Indianapolis. And we just got to do it when he's got the time to do it. And it's a little tough to do right now because he's got other priorities like the Olympics and stuff like that. So we'll get to that just as soon as we can. All right. Where are we at here? The Cool Driver. I like that name. The Cool Driver writes, now that Spider-Man is back at Sony, what is the possibility of a live-action Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with Maguire, Garfield, and Holland? Oh, I hope completely, absolutely zero. To me, that just sounds like a mess of a movie. It's a better sounding idea for a 10-minute YouTube video than it is for an actual motion picture. So, certainly hoping absolutely zero. They're not going to do something like that. Now watch them do it. Anything is possible in this business, brother. All right. Ewan Fitzhugh writes, I wonder how the MCU deals with him disappearing. They just won't address it. It'll be, I mentioned it in the companion video that never got published, that it's going to be like Highlander 3. Highlander 3 just pretends that Highlander 2 never happened. It never at any point acknowledges anything that happens in Highlander 2. That's how they handle it. And honestly, I think that's how the MCU handles it. Now remember, most of the characters in the MCU have hardly any exposure to Spider-Man. Hardly any. Most of them maybe were around him for a couple of hours. So it won't be all that difficult, I don't think. All right. Nick writes, seen the new THX Deep Note logo intro? Oh my God, glorious. I have not, but somebody was just writing to me about how they saw an old one, the old THX thing on Deep Blu-ray, and I'm like, oh, I remember that. That used to be such an awesome thing. I did not know there was a new one, Nick. Thank you for putting that on my radar. I'm going to check that out. Nick, Rambo is a pussy, Stallone in Tango and Cash 1989. I've seen Tango and Cash at least 10 times. I don't remember the line. How do I not remember that line? I have to go back and check it out. But that's funny. All right. Mike Thompson writes, most shocking heel turns ever. Hulk Hogan joining the NWO. Stone Cold aligns himself with Vince McMahon. Disney ruins the Sony Spider-Man deal. That's big. Don't forget about Shawn Michaels putting Marty Jannetty through the window. Don't forget about that heel turn. That's one of the great heel turns of all time too. But yes, Disney sabotaging the Spider-Man deal has got to be up there. Got to be up there for the mouse taking his heel turn. Absolutely, Mike. All right. Ethan's Tech World writes, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I kid you not that they showed a teaser for Tenet. I was like, what? This early, Chris? Oh yeah, that was a big story a few weeks ago. I never saw it. I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I never saw a trailer for it. I've read the description of the trailer. But I have not seen the trailer myself. I'm sure at some point here soon it'll leak online, or maybe it's probably already leaked online somewhere. But at some point they'll put it online. I'll have a chance to check it out, but I have not seen it yet. But so yeah, that was actually a big story like weeks ago, Ethan. The whole thing about that. People saw a Tenet trailer. John David Washington apparently is featured in it and all that kind of stuff, but I haven't seen it yet myself. But I heard all about it. I just haven't seen it. All right. Gary Allegra writes, couple quick ones on my birthday. Well, happy birthday, Gary. I hope you have a fabulous one, brother. Any chance Rambo does well without much story in trailers? Best movie / TV to watch with mom, who doesn't like sci-fi superhero concept but loves thrillers. First of all, I think the second Rambo trailer does give you the story. It tells you this is what this movie's about. Obviously, Rambo has this kid he considers family. We're on the ranch. She's taken. He's got to go get her, and he's going to punish those who did it. They've just told us what the movie's about. That's perfect. So so yeah, it's going to do fine. It's going to do fine. Best movies TV to watch with mom, who doesn't like sci-fi superhero high concept but loves thrillers and twists. The Expanse. If she likes thrillers and twists, The Expanse might be a good one. So that might be one to try, Gary. That might be one to try. Again, it's hard to say for sure when I don't know your mom clearly. So that makes it very, very difficult to make a guess. But off the top of my head, The Expanse could be a good one for that. That could be a good one for that. So maybe check that out. Another one possibly is the Umbrella Academy. Umbrella Academy might be a good one for that as well. That might be one that she can get into. So give that a shot. Let me know how it works out. All right. Joseph Rotini sends in a really generous super chat. Thank you, Joseph, for supporting the channel on that level, dude. John and Chris, who's not here right now. Do you think it's possible that this Sony/Disney contract issue is underlining that maybe they were trying to integrate the Sonyverse into the MCU, trying to get more ownership would make sense in that light? Well, listen. That Disney is trying to get their foot in the door with some ownership was laid bare by the fact that one of their demands was that they be given co-financing agreement. Like, as some people who didn't get it look at that going, oh, look, Disney's willing to help finance the movies. Isn't that a good thing? No. Because Sony exclusively pays for those movies, that means they have all the rights to them. If they let another company come in and co-finance them, that gives them some rights to the film and to the property and to the intellectual property. It becomes a sticky, slippery slope. And they got to be very, very careful about that. So you're right on the money, Joseph. Part of Disney's play here is trying to get a foot in the door with some more exertive rights. They want to have some exertive rights in this property. Because right now, Sony has all the power. Because they own the rights to it. They should have all the power. But Disney would like to get some of that control back, and there's no way Sony wants to give any of that up. So they're going to go, no, thank you. We'll pay for the movies. Thank you very much. Because we don't want you to have any sort of claim on any of the IP, which you would have a claim on the IP in the movies if you're one of the people who pays for it. So no, thank you, but no thank you. We'll pay for the movies ourselves. Thank you very much. It's just something they can't do. So yeah, in a roundabout way, Joseph, in a roundabout way, I think you're completely on the right path there. I really do. We'll have to wait and see, as in a lot of other things, just how it all works out, though. All right. Had a little bit of a jump there. All right, guys, just a couple more questions, and we got to wrap it up here today, partially because my throat is about to go. I'm about to lose my voice completely. Like I said, I did like over a 2.5, almost 3 hour video last night. CMJ World writes, it's 8/22 and it's my birthday. Happy birthday, dude. Not having the best day mentally, but you're taking my mind off things. Keep up the great work, John. You know what, CMJ, I talk about this a lot. One of the great things about the film world and the film fan community is that it gives us not just a distraction, it gives us an oasis where we can get away for a moment from our real world issues and our real world problems, let our minds relax a minute, refresh, take a beat, and maybe come back then into our real world problems with a fresher perspective and a little bit more in a better position to deal with the stuff that we're having. And I love that about the film fan community and about movies in general. And I'm thrilled that this little pocket of the film fan community can be here to help you do that stuff. So happiest of birthdays, CMJ. Have a good one. Recharge those batteries. Go back out and conquer. And I hope you have a great one, my friend. All right. Ari Altaris writes, great show, man. Thank you so much, Ari. You and the gang are the best. Your chemistry is amazing. Well, thank you so much. I'm very, very lucky that I work with some great people, particularly on camera here. Having Robert and Aaron and Chris is just wonderful. And I'll use the word blessed. I'm blessed to work with such great people who have such great chemistry, and it's really a pleasure. So thank you so much, Ari, even just for taking the time to write in something just to say something nice. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate it. All right, Chocolate Thunder writes, Disney seems fair, but they can go full Homelander. Yep. That's a good way to put it, Chocolate. They've gone full Homelander here. Absolutely. Initial D's writes, all those comments for nothing. I don't remember what we're talking about initially. Sorry about that, brother. Chocolate Thunder writes, thoughts on Angie Tribeca airplane type comedy? Gotta admit, I'm not familiar with it, man. Sorry about that. Laugh Warehouse writes, is Far From Home now irrelevant? Hope all works. Look, no matter what, here's the thing. No matter what happens with Spider-Man going forward, whether they erase him from the MCU, whether he, goes back and just does Sony movies, or whether Disney and Sony come to an agreement and able to keep things going, regardless of what happens, Far From Home is still a movie, and it's a great, entertaining movie. That doesn't change, no matter what happens moving forward. If the movie was good and entertaining, then it will always be a good and entertaining movie. What happens after the fact doesn't touch it. It reminds me a lot of Laugh Warehouse, of the notion of reboots. Like, if you make a reboot, it doesn't touch the original film. The original film is still there, and it still has its identity, and it still is what it is. Regardless if you make a reboot and it's great or it's terrible, it doesn't matter. You still got the original. It's still there. Regardless of what happens with Spider-Man moving forward, no, Far From Home isn't irrelevant, because no movie that is fun and entertaining and engaging and is a great experience watching is ever irrelevant. So, no, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. All right, last question, guys, I'm going to take, and then we're going to have to cut this thing off, because I simply can't talk any longer. Chocolate Thunder writes, now that Endgame has barely beat Avatar, what's more impressive overall? Endgame 350 million opening weekend, or Avatar's 2.8 billion in 2009? Well, look, here's the thing. How many times has the all-time worldwide box office record been broken in the last 10 years? Once. How many times has it been broken in the last 17 years? Twice. On the other hand, how many times in the last 10 years has the opening weekend box office record been broken? 9 times? 7 times? 15 times? Whatever. To me, the more impressive thing is the thing that happens the least. And in this case, we've had the all-time worldwide box office record broken once in a decade. Once in the last 10 years, it's been broken. The opening weekend box office record has been broken many times. So to me, the more impressive is the overall worldwide all-time box office record. That to me is the more impressive one. And you may disagree, which is totally cool, because that 350 million opening weekend box office, that is insane. That's just insane. But it happens more often. So I'm going to lean towards the opening weekend. All right, guys. From Mason, J Masters, Isaac, Majid, and everybody else all the way down, do not worry. I'm going to get to your questions in a video today in another companion. I actually got 2 companion videos coming today. One that I've already recorded and I got to just publish. But then I will get around to answering the rest of your questions of all the ones that you guys have sent in another video later today. Keep your eyes open for that in just a bit. All right, guys. That will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and letting me be a part of your day. It is an awesome privilege to have you guys here. By the way, guys, remember, jump on over, make sure you go and hit that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the YouTube channel. Before you leave, just take a second, click the thumbs up on the video if you enjoy these types of videos, and make sure you jump down to the comments section and add your voice to the conversation. Let us know what you guys think about any or all the topics that we discussed here today. That will do it for me for now, guys. Don't forget the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow. Come on back and join us for that. My name is John Campea, and until our next video, bye-bye.